In the heart of Cape Town on Spin Street, a small plaque marks where the legendary slave tree once stood. For years, people believed this was where human beings were bought and sold, a symbol of the city's painful history. The truth is more complex. The actual slave market was at the slave lodge, now a museum, but the tree became a powerful symbol. It gave people a landmark for a history often buried and ignored. The tree's legend became a focal point for memory. Even after it was cut down, its story forces us to pause and remember those who walk these streets as property, not people. The plaque doesn't mark an auction block, but it marks the beginning of a conversation. It's a starting point to dig deeper, to uncover the real experiences of the thousands who built the Cape. The tree may be gone, but its roots spread through the city, its shadow still touching us today. It's a quiet monument to a loud history, urging us to listen to the stories of the forgotten. The legend of the tree is a reminder. Slavery happened here, shaping the very foundations of Cape Town. It's the first page of a book many have never opened. The story of the tree is about how we choose to remember the hardest parts of our past. Its myth endures as a call to remember, to question and to honor those whose voices were silenced. Why did the Cape become a society built on slavery? It started with the Dutch East India Company, the VOC, in 1652. They set up a refreshment station at the Cape for ships traveling to Asia. The plan was simple: grow food for passing ships. But the local Khoikhoi people refused to become farm laborers. The Dutch settlers needed cheap labor to make the colony work. Their solution: import enslaved people, a system they already used in their Asian colonies. In 1658, 2 ships brought over 250 enslaved people from Angola, transforming the Cape into a slave colony. This was a deliberate choice driven by profit. As the colony grew, so did the demand for enslaved labor to farm. Build and serve slavery became the engine of the Cape's economy. Its very foundation, the city's iconic houses, vineyards and infrastructure, were built by enslaved hands. Cape's beauty is inseparable from this dark beginning. To understand South Africa, we must confront this history. It's the foundation on which everything else was built. The enslaved people of the Cape were incredibly diverse. Coming from Africa and across the Indian Ocean, the first arrivals were from Angola, but most came from places like Indonesia, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, India, Madagascar, and Mozambique. Each person brought their own language, culture, and faith: Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, and traditional beliefs. This diversity shaped Cape Town's unique culture. From food to music to religion, the term Cape Malay and the city's Muslim heritage come directly from this history. Enslaved people held on to their traditions, blending them into something new. The Cape became a forced melting pot, connected to a global system of exploitation. Ships that carried spices and silks also carried human beings. This mixing, under horrific conditions, is central to South Africa's story. It's why the country's history can't be reduced to simple black and white. The legacy is painful, but it's also one of cultural richness and resilience. The enslaved were artisans, farmers, and scholars, not just victims. Their stories are woven into the fabric of the nation. The Cape's diversity is a direct result of this global tragic history. Daily life for the enslaved at the Cape meant relentless work and constant uncertainty. On farms they plowed, planted, harvested, and built the grand houses we see today in Cape Town. They were builders, artisans, fishermen, and domestic workers essential to the city's economy. Living conditions were harsh, with little food, clothing, or comfort. Despite exhaustion and the threat of violence, enslaved people found ways to survive and build community. They shared stories, sang songs, and practiced their religions in secret. For Muslims from Southeast Asia, faith became a source of unity and quiet resistance. They established the first mosques, creating spaces of hope and identity. Families were always at risk of being torn apart, sold, separated with no legal protection. The fear of punishment was constant, but so was the dream of freedom. Even in the darkest times, hope endured. Their resilience shaped the spirit of Cape Town. The city's energy was theirs, even if history tried to erase them. The enslaved built more than buildings. They built communities and legacies. Their endurance is a testament to the human spirit. Behind the statistics are real people who found ways to freedom. Krotua, a Khoi girl, became a vital interpreter between the Dutch navigating two worlds but never fully accepted by either. Louis van Mauritius, once enslaved, worked as a tailor, bought his freedom, his families, and became a successful businessman. Imam Abdullah Khadi Abdul Salam, or Tuan Guru, was exiled from Indonesia, wrote the Quran from memory in prison, and became a spiritual leader, founding Cape Town's first mosque. These stories challenge the idea that enslaved people were passive victims. They were leaders, entrepreneurs, and scholars who shaped their own destinies. Their determination and hope built new lives against all odds. Remembering their names gives a human face to history. They remind us that freedom was always fought for, never simply given. Their legacies endure in Cape Town's culture and faith. These individuals should be as well known as any colonial governor. Their stories inspire us to see the humanity behind the history. Resistance at the Cape wasn't just open rebellion, it was daily quiet defiance. Enslaved people slowed work, feigned illness, broke tools, and sabotaged crops. These small acts disrupted the system and asserted their will. Running away was another form of resistance. Despite the risks of brutal punishment, some escaped to the mountains, forming maroon communities, symbols of hope and freedom. Cultural and spiritual resistance was just as powerful. Enslaved Muslims built strong communities, keeping faith alive despite Dutch control. Stories, music, and languages were passed down in secret, preserving identity by refusing to forget their past. They created a vibrant new culture. Their resilience was a constant challenge to the dehumanizing system. Every act of resistance, big or small, was a declaration of humanity. The legacy of resistance lives on in South Africa's culture. The enslaved were never just victims. They were survivors and fighters. Their quiet roar still echoes today. The Cape's rigid social order was full of contradictions. Few European women meant relationships between European men and enslaved, or Khoi women were common, leading to a new mixed-race population. These children often occupied a complicated space, sometimes acknowledged, often not occasionally. These relationships led to freedom and social mobility. Though rarely, Angela of Bengal's story stands out. Enslaved, she won freedom for herself and her children, married a Dutch settler, and became a landowner. Her descendants became part of Cape society, showing the cracks in the system. These stories are the roots of South Africa's colored community. They complicate the narrative of black and white, revealing a deeply intertwined heritage. The nation's origins are a mix of European, African, and Asian ancestry. This history is one of both exploitation and resilience. Understanding these beginnings challenges the racial divisions imposed later. It reveals a shared heritage at the heart of South Africa. Why care about this history today? Because its legacy is everywhere. The geography of our cities, the patterns of wealth and poverty, all trace back to slavery. The ideas that justified slavery became the foundation for segregation and apartheid. Understanding this helps us fight modern racism and inequality. Telling these stories gives voice to those erased from history. Enslaved people were builders, artisans, and cultural pioneers. This isn't about rewriting history, but filling in the missing chapters. Their survival and resilience are a source of pride and inspiration. They pass down culture, faith, and hope to future generations. Their legacy is one of strength and community. Remembering them helps us build a more just society. What do we do with this knowledge? First, we remember. Support museums teach this history honestly, and honor the enslaved with monuments and stories. Recognition is next. Acknowledge that the Cape's wealth was built on suffering. This isn't about guilt, but honesty. Understanding who was given a head start and who was held back. Only by facing the past can we build a more just future. Remembering and recognizing leads to reconciliation. Our shared intertwined history is what binds us as South Africans. It's a story of hope. Talking about this today is progress. The legacy of the enslaved is one of resilience. Not victimhood, they survived and passed on culture. Faith and hope by honoring them. We light a path forward. This is how we build a South Africa true to its promise of freedom and justice for all.